Has moved to the adjournment.
I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is this House do now adjourn. Emily Darlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In January, Tia Simons was killed by her husband, her body hidden in a storage area in the loft of her home, lying face downwards, covered in clothing and bedding. In March, Wendy Francis was stabbed to death by her daughter's boyfriend, who also tried to kill her daughter. In April, Rachel McDade was strangled to death with a bootlace by her estranged husband, who had broken into her house. In June, Rita Fleming was drowned in the bath after sustaining serious head injuries from her fiancé. In August, mother of three, Courtney Mitchell, was chased down the street and stabbed to death in broad daylight by her ex-boyfriend. Every 3 days in this country, a woman is murdered by a man. Any other murder or violence spree against a group in our society would be front page news every single day. I will give way.
I commend the Honourable Lady for Milton Keynes Central for bringing this forward. The Honourable Lady, first of all, congratulations and well done. The Minister's in her place. The Minister's a love of Northern Ireland. I know that. In Northern Ireland, in the last year, 6 women have been murdered. I understand that they're all cases are pending, accountable, but does that not illustrate exactly? It doesn't matter where you are in this great United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the murder rate for women is absolutely abysmal.
I absolutely agree with my honourable colleague. I don't know, friend. I don't know. I feel I know you now with so many interventions. But I would say it is the fact that it's not front page news and top headline news that shows that the discrimination, the misogyny and the news coverage around this issue means that we need to use our positions in the House to make sure it is heard. This year was confirmed that the most dangerous place for a woman to be anywhere in the world is in her own home. It's estimated that less than 24% of domestic abuse crime is reported to the police, yet the police receive domestic abuse-related calls every 30 seconds. It isn't just devastating for the women who are in receipt of it, but also for the children that observe it. And domestic abuse comes in all forms: violent, emotional, financial. 1 in 4 women in England and Wales will experience domestic abuse in her lifetime. Yes, happy to.
Wolverhampton, last year, it was estimated that over 6,000 women were subjected to domestic abuse. Would my honourable friend please give commendation to the Orange Wolverhampton campaign that runs from the 25th of November to 10th December every year, whereby the campaign involves Wolverhampton Safeguarding Team, the Safer Wolverhampton Partnership and the City of Wolverhampton Council to work together in order to highlight the issues of men's violence against women, and this also includes domestic abuse and violence against young women that's sadly so prevalent these days.
I'd like to thank my honourable friend for that intervention. I know Wolverhampton has been doing many community campaigns to change the tide of this violence against women and girls, and I know that that's been happening in cities and towns across our country. But we need to be there to support these campaigns for them to have a true impact. I want to take this opportunity to thank an organisation in my own constituency, Milton Keynes, MK, ACT. They have done enormous work, including running a refuge and perpetrator programmes in order to support those who've been victims of domestic abuse, but also those that perpetrate it. And it's work like this that has been trying to stem the tide of abuse in our communities.
With my honourable friend. Does my honourable friend and the Minister agree with me that we need to ensure the ongoing funding for the critical organisations in our communities that are supporting women and girls, like the Emily Davison Centre, which was the first centre for ending violence against women and girls that was established in the UK, in Accrington,
It's been a long day.
And furthermore, apologies, Mr. Speaker, furthermore, that you might pay tribute to the amazing work of one of the councillors in my constituency, Samara Barnes, who is leading with the Safer Rosendale scheme on a brilliant scheme in Haslingden to ensure that Christmas parties are safer this year, following on for the very important development in legislation tackling spiking of people's drinks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry, it's been a long day for all of us, and I really appreciate that members have stayed this late on such an important day. You're right. Waiting for the next intervention. But I do agree with my honourable friend that it is councillors in their local communities and organisations like her own that are making the difference, that are the place that women are turning to because, unfortunately, the system is letting them down. Not least around rape. Despite 5 out of 6 rapes not even being reported to the police, in the year ending July, almost 70,000 women courageously reported their rape. Only 2.7% of these ever made to charge in court, while for other crimes it's 7%, making it easier to get away with rape in this country than robbery. Under this government, the violence against women agenda, yes, happy to.
I thank the honourable member for giving way and securing this really important debate. Now, there are around 3,000 reports of violence against women reported in Somerset every month, and at least 1 in 12 women experience violence against them each year. Many of those incidents do go unreported. Now, a constituent of mine was sadly regularly physically abused by and gaslighted by her ex-partner, and she felt really disappointed and disillusioned with the police response. So it feels to me that there's no wonder that so many women are not confident to be able to report the abuse against them. So does the honourable member agree with me that gaslighting is a serious problem in tackling violence against women and girls?
I thank the honourable member for her intervention. She's absolutely right, and we need to look at why women do not have confidence in reporting to police. And I would think that some of that will be because of the numbers that we've seen go through to prosecution and the worry that they may have that it will get worse for them before it gets better, and the protection that they may or may not receive. But I'm really proud to be part of a government, Mr. Speaker, that has declared this a national emergency. I'm proud of the work we've already done, committing to have violence against women and girls, the introduction of the domestic abuse protection orders to give greater protection to victims, Raheem's law to transform how police handle domestic violence calls, the introduction of workplace sexual harassment laws and new protections for victims of stalking and making spiking a specific criminal offence. And that is no doubt down to the hard work of the amazing women we have leading this in government, not least the Honourable Member for Birmingham and Yardley, the Honourable Member for Pontypridd and the Honourable Member for Pontefract and Castleford for their absolute commitment and tireless work on this issue.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker, and I think I congratulate the Honourable Lady on getting this debate, and I think what she's saying is absolutely right. And would she agree with me that actually it's changes in law in this place which can help lead to perhaps broader cultural change in society? Sometimes we actually have to be at the forefront of that, and sometimes that can be quite difficult, but actually we have to also pick up that challenge, particularly when it comes to tackling violence against women and girls.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for that intervention. I absolutely agree. And it's when we see actions like members across the House raising this in Northern Ireland questions, raising this in Westminster Hall, raising it throughout the different debates that we have, that we know that will have impact right across not just what the government does, but actually right across how men and women perceive this issue in our communities. I want to talk about those perceptions, particularly the perceptions of young men. We often get the platitudes, Mr. Speaker, that women, it's always been this way. So is that actually true? Well, a 2024 CPS survey of 18 to 24-year-old men has shown us that it's not. Half of 18 to 24-year-olds think that it's not rape if the victim doesn't resist or fight back. Over half think that being in a relationship or a marriage means consent to sex can be assumed. 2/3 believe that if a person says online they want to meet up and have sex, they are entitled to the sex when they meet, no matter what the individual may change their mind. And more than half think that if a man has been drinking or taking drugs, he is not responsible for the rapes
Would
he
my honourable friend
commits.
give way?
I'm happy to.
Thank you, and I thank my honourable friend for bringing this forward. Would the House agree with me that we need to do more to tackle the toxic masculinity by people and influencers like Andrew Tate? Because they are at the forefront of putting this into the minds of young men.
I thank my honourable... Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable member for that intervention, and I'm just about to come on to exactly that point. So the results of this survey show that young men between 18 and 24 have a significantly poorer understanding of rape and consent than those over the age of 65. So how has this happened? Young men are being radicalised in the same way recognised by terrorist groups. This sense of entitlement, this righteousness, this belonging to community, a community whose role models are Andrew Tate, who says, if you put yourself in a position to be raped, you must bear some responsibility. Losers love to talk about feelings. And when he talks about women, he says, grip her by the neck in a video viewed over 1.6 million times. 8 out of 10 boys between 16 and 17 know, watch, read, or listen to these videos. And almost half of them have a positive view of him.
Would my honourable friend give way?
Yes,
I thank my honourable friend for bringing this debate and the way it's been conducted at the end of what is quite a long day. I think that I'm a proud champion of the White Ribbon campaign and have been for many years. It's based in my constituency. And key to that campaign is the idea that it starts with men. And it starts with men taking responsibility for how their friends act, how they act, and so forth. But in this place, we also have the job to legislate. And I wonder if you agree with me that part of that is making sure we get the education right. Because at the moment, the education system does not do enough to address this. And we can see that in the results. UK Feminista stats say that almost 4 in 10 girls who go to mixed schools have been sexually harassed while they're at school. This is not acceptable. You can't learn if you have fear. If you're a human being, you should have the right to live without fear. And that's what I want to see in this country, in our education system and throughout society.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I absolutely agree with my honourable friend, and I know he is a big champion on this issue, not least with the White Ribbon UK in his own constituency. And I want to move on to that. So what do we do to make sure that we challenge this? The work that the government is doing is absolutely challenging it in terms of the law, in terms of the courts. But it's up to us to challenge it in our communities. We are role models in our communities, and that is why I am proud to have led Milton Keynes to become the first White Ribbon city.
My honourable give way.
Yes.
Thank you. Can I just first of all thank my honourable friend for bringing this motion forward. It's so important for how we behave in society, but also how we behave in this House. I've submitted an early day motion calling for DBS checks for all members, whether they're in the House of Lords or in the other place. And I think this will lead to greater transparency and openness and hopefully make us all feel much safer in the corridors of power. But more importantly, I think it gives the institutions that we visit, such as care homes and schools, much greater confidence about who they're letting in through their doors. So would my honourable friend support such a proposal?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my honourable friend who I know cares a lot about this issue, and I absolutely see the value in ensuring that whenever a Member of Parliament comes in, there should be no fear around that they are a person always that we can have confidence in around our elderly and around our children and around women in their own constituency. The theme of this year is it starts with men. Not all men are violent, but all men can help end violence against women and girls. And I'd like to thank some of the men who've spoken on this issue recently, who are paving the way to be incredible role models for the other men to look up to. The Honourable Member for Calder Valley, as in his tireless work, the Honourable Member for Blackpool South, who spoke passionately at the White Ribbon Day reception, and many, many others who spoke in the Westminster Hall debate and in questions throughout this House. It starts with us here in this House. And when members fall short, we, like the men and women of the House, should be able to call it out. And I hope we consider, if it's appropriate, for members, through the modernisation and other initiatives, like your DBS checks, whether members elected this House with violent criminal records.
Will my honourable friend give way?
Yes.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Refuges offer protection from perpetrators, time to recover from abuse, and a range of support to enable survivors to rebuild their lives. Yet last year, 61% of refuge referrals in England had to be declined due to lack of capacity. In my constituency of Scarborough and Whitby, we have the highest rate of recorded domestic incidents in North Yorkshire, but no refuge. Does my honourable friend agree with me that the refuge sector needs more support?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I absolutely agree with my honourable friend. Refuges, and there are far too few of them, with far too little beds, and often are not appropriate for the kind of care and support that both the survivor needs, but also their children need. I would like to see more examples like the one run and purpose-built one run in Milton Keynes that actually provides the care and the counselling for everyone in the family that needs to flee the situation, and that will require more support from both local authorities and from the government to ensure that best practice is shared and that the funding is there. Just to conclude, for far too long, excuses have been made. I was drunk, her skirt was short, her heels were high, and it was a teenage indiscretion. We need to remember that our behaviour, our words, our actions are being watched. We have the opportunity to turn the tide for the 50% of the population that are scared to walk down the street, to go to a festival, to go for a run, or even to go home. Too many women. The statistics of violence against women and girls makes them feel like something will happen to them, that it is inevitable, even if it's already happened to them before. And to them, this feels like only a matter of time. So it is up to us in this House, every member, woman or man, to be able to hold themselves up as an example to how real men behave and how women should feel they should be treated. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. Minister Jess Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I start by thanking my honourable friend, the member for Milton Keynes Central, for bringing forward this debate on such an important issue, and also maybe not noted by any of those other than those of us with the most eagle eye, what she has called this debate, and that is the violence by men against women. I noted it and appreciate it, because men's violence against women and girls ruins lives on a truly terrible scale, and it must be treated as a national emergency. It is a high harm and high volume crime, and so for that reason, the second part of that, the high volume, it is a difficult issue to grapple with, but one that we are absolutely determined to do. The data tells us that crimes such as domestic abuse, stalking, rape and other sexual offences disproportionately affect women, and we also know that these crimes are predominantly, though not exclusively, committed by men. We have committed to halving violence against women and girls in the next decade, and I will refer to some of the steps, although, I mean, it's very nice, isn't it, for a government minister when the person that all of the steps that you're going to take as a government were in the speech of the person before you. I appreciate it. This includes addressing the root causes and the underlying behaviours and attitudes that cause violence against women and girls, and ensuring perpetrators are brought to justice. The femicides that my honourable friend highlighted when she began speaking tell the story better than any of us could. They are harrowing and each one a tragedy. And also, I think that to say a positive thing, that this Parliament, this new Parliament, which I have to say, Mr. Speaker, just behaved beautifully in the previous debate, and I feel proud today to call myself a parliamentarian. But this new Parliament, and I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I don't know how you're doing it because I literally can't identify half of the new members of Parliament. The amount of men I have seen speaking up on violence against women and girls since I have been in my ministerial position from all sides of this House has been a real sea change. So the fact that this year's White Ribbon Day, as was referred to by my honourable friend, is it starts with men, I have really, really felt that. I will doff my cap to the honourable member for Strangford, who has always been in pretty much every debate I have been in on this subject. But I really do feel like there has been quite a tide turning in this regard, and it is really lovely to see here today men and women together speaking up about this. We all know that domestic abuse is often a hidden crime that is not reported to the police. That is not acceptable, and victims deserve to feel safe and for justice to be upheld. In addition to relentlessly pursuing perpetrators, it is also essential that we prevent reoffending and ensure there is a comprehensive approach to perpetrators, from early intervention to targeting the most prolific and repeat offenders. This is why, as I outlined earlier, I didn't outline it. My honourable friend outlined some of the things that the government was going to do. We have implemented a series of bold measures designed to strengthen the police response to violence against women and girls and protect victims and hold perpetrators to account. I will give way.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After a case of domestic abuse, my constituent dealt with over 2 years of delay before eventually the CPS decided not to proceed with the case, as the perpetrator hadn't carried out any further cases. With that in mind, does the Minister agree with me that we must address the delays in domestic abuse and the referrals from the police to the CPS, as these delays pose a unique risk to women's safety?
I absolutely agree, and I think everybody sat in this debate today could probably refer to a case in their own constituency with regards to some of those similar delays. Obviously, in my role, I work very closely with both the police and the CPS to try and bottom out some of the issues that cause some of those delays, other than the general degradation of our justice system that has gone on, trying to make improvements where we can. But attrition of victims dropping out is something that is currently one of the biggest barriers to us actually holding people to account. And who could blame a person for dropping out after being made to wait? So I totally agree with her. As part of our mission to halve violence against women and girls in a decade, we will ask police to relentlessly pursue those perpetrators who pose the greatest risk to women and use all the tools at their disposal to protect victims and get dangerous offenders off our streets. We will work with police to develop a national framework which uses data-driven tools and algorithms to track and target high-harm offenders involved in domestic abuse, sexual assault, harassment and stalking. In addition to the relentless pursuing of perpetrators, it is also essential that we prevent reoffending, and with that have a truly comprehensive approach to how to deal with perpetration. Currently, many members in their interventions mentioned brilliant organisations within their own constituencies, and I am delighted to hear that people have those. Time was that there weren't brilliant organisations all across the country, and we have to make sure that we maintain those brilliant services, so vital for helping keep victims safe. With regards to the attitudes that my honourable friend talked about, specifically the attitudes of young men, I am the mother of two teenage boys, one about not to be a teenager and an actual real adult. I mean, he's not paying me any rent yet. I have to say, I have been alarmed by some. The data doesn't surprise me that she read out. Actually, I have been alarmed at how we always felt that this would be something that would progress. That this, it's just a domestic. That those attitudes would gradually get better with time. But what we can see from the data about attitudes, but also the data around the perpetration and victimisation data, is that currently this crime is trending young. It's the biggest growth area is in those aged 16 to 19. Now, all of us would think that that was a tragedy we hadn't seen coming, that this was something that the younger generation, that we would be able to programme out. Well, I'm afraid to say that has not been done, and so prevention and education will be absolutely fundamental to our approach, and we will tackle the root causes of these crimes, including supporting our education system to teach children about respectful and healthy relationships and consent. We know that, the idea that just because you matched with somebody on an online app, that would mean you owed them something, is the weakest idea of consent I've ever heard. We know that domestic abuse is one of the main reasons children come into contact with children's social care, and a feature in over half of serious incidents reported to Child Safeguarding Practice Review Panel. And we know that those who experience abuse before the age of 16 are more likely to go on to be victims or perpetrators in adulthood. And that is why prevention has to be the absolute cornerstone of the government's actions going forward. This government is currently reviewing the content of the RSHE curriculum. The Secretary of State for Education has been clear that children's well-being must be at the heart of this guidance for schools. As such, the government will look carefully at the consultation responses and discuss with stakeholders and consider the relevant evidence before setting out next steps. In closing, I would once again like to express my gratitude to my honourable friend and all other honourable members who are here on a Friday, and for her securing this debate. Our mission is to halve violence against women and girls in a decade, and it is ambitious but also essential. And we won't do it without everybody in this house doing it together, as well as everybody in this country doing this together. The points raised here today have once more reaffirmed how important and vital this work is, and reminded us of the responsibility that we bear to the women and girls across this country. This government remains steadfast in that commitment and will tackle these issues head on. I look forward to collaborating with all colleagues, as I always have.
Yeah. The question is, this House do now adjourn. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The ayes have it, order.